on Sabbath, part 3. I'm Joey Heffman with Light of Yeshua Ministries, and this is Tony Stegall. So we're going to go over some scriptures, and we're probably going to do several more parts to this, just in case anybody has any doubt whatsoever what day the Sabbath is actually on, or it should be on. Okay, so Tony's going to show you something in Romans right here, which is a popular argument against the Sabbath. And it has nothing whatsoever to do with the Sabbath.
That's right.
But the people will use this scripture to say, no, it don't matter what day you keep the Sabbath on. And again, I have to remind you, the Sabbath is not a day of worship. You should worship every day,
Yes.
continually. You should be thinking about it when you get up in the mornings, when you retire, as you walk by the way, constantly thinking about the Yahweh and His commandments and the scriptures. So we worship every day, but there's one specific day that is a Sabbath, and it is a sign from your Creator of who His people are. And that's important. If you want to be in that category of His people, then you need to understand this. Do not let Satan confuse you and dupe you into a different day. If this is a mark and a sign, make sure that you're part of it.
Yes.
And we're not saying take our word. We're saying get in the scriptures.
Yes.
Check it out for yourself. Don't be a lazy Christian. Open the book and read it. And you'll find out that we've been lied to. We've been deceived. And it's not until the last days, which we're in right now, that we're actually going to figure this out. We're going to come back to the truth, and we're going to worship the Creator in the way that He wants us to worship Him. Now, all this stuff is being revealed here in the last days,
Right.
and the people that are smart are taking heed to it, and we're actually seeing it for what it's worth, and we care. That's the biggest thing.
And you know, Joey, this is something we look forward to keeping the Shabbat, the Sabbath. We're actually teaching on the Sabbath, but later after this, we'll have a service and oneg, a meal, and fellowship. And this is something we look forward to every week. We count the days down to the Sabbath, and man, we are so relieved, because it's not just a physical rest, it's a spiritual rest. There's no matter what's going on around you in the world, there is a spiritual rest on this day. And it's also a scientific fact. The body repairs itself at night from 9 till 2 o'clock in the morning. That's scientifically proven. It repairs itself. But on the Sabbath day, the seventh day, the body repairs itself better. This is scientifically proven. Better than any other day of the week.
Right.
Now, you think this is coincidence. But anyhow, it's a spiritual rest.
Kevin Trudeau's book actually says that.
Yeah.
His healing book, Kevin Trudeau's book, I read it in there.
Isn't that awesome? That on the Sabbath, the body repairs itself better than any other day.
That's right.
But it's also a spiritual rest, and it's something that we don't dread. We look forward to this every week, every week. It's a delight. We delight in His Sabbath.
Right.
So I want to read a passage that is usually twisted and used to say that we don't have to keep the Sabbath, and this is one of many. I've got several of them here, and Joey's got several too.
Right.
But it's Romans 14:5, and it says, "One man esteemed one day above another, another esteems every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind." Now this right here is what they use to
Say it don't matter what day you keep.
yeah. And it's not even talking about a Sabbath.
It's not even a scripture about the Sabbath.
It's, if you read on, you'll get the context of what he's saying. Let not him who takes food have a low opinion of him who does not, and let him who does not take food be a judge of him who does, for he has Elohim's approval. He's talking about fasting.
Fasting.
There's nothing in here
Don't
about,
judge your brother about fasting on a different day than you.
Yes.
That's all it's saying.
That's all it's saying. But it's taken out of context, and the church has used this of one of many scriptures. I've got another one here, Joel.
Yeah.
Galatians 4:9 through 11. But now, after you have known Elohim, or rather have known of Elohim, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto you desire to be in bondage. You observe days, months, and times, and years. I'm afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. Again, this is not talking about the Sabbath.
No. You have to look at who's speaking here.
That's right.
And who he is speaking to.
The culture he's talking to.
What is he talking about? Is this Paul?
Yes.
And he's
speaking to the Galatians.
He's speaking to the Galatians. And read that scripture again.
Okay. But now, after you have known Elohim, or rather have known of Elohim.
That's right.
How turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements?
Okay. So what he's saying is, you knew Elohim. You knew Yahweh. You knew his Sabbath day. You knew his feast days, commanded feast days in the Bible. Leviticus 23. If you don't know where the commanded feast days are, go in Leviticus 23 and look it up.
Yes.
The very first one is the Sabbath day. It's the first feast. So he's saying, you knew my commandments. You knew my Sabbaths. You knew my feast days. But you have turned back to your weak and beggarly elements, which are Sunday worship, or Sunday Sabbath, I should say, Sunday rest, Ishtar Sunday, Easter Sunday, spring fertility goddess, where you have all your fertility symbols, your eggs, your bloody colored Easter eggs.
And they actually had orgies on this day.
Eggs dipped in blood, of the blood of the sacrifice, which was the infant that year they sacrificed to their spring fertility goddess. You have December the 25th, not the birthday of the Messiah, far from it, but the birthday of the sun god. When the days got at their shortest part of the year, which is the vernal equinox, or the winter solstice, December the 22nd, the shortest day of the year, 3 days later, the sun returned, the days started getting longer. On December the 25th, the rebirth of their sun god. Zeus, Mithra, Nimrod, it all stemmed from Nimrod. You don't have to take our word for it. It's easy to figure this out. Go to any mythology books or on the internet or whatever, study mythology, and you'll find out all the birthdays of the sun gods were December 25th, but not the birthday of the Messiah. If you want to learn his birthday, you can actually go to Haggai, and it talks about it in the 9th month. They're talking about Hebrew months, not the calendar we're on, the solar calendar that we're on, but the Hebrew calendar, the lunar calendar, the biblical calendar, and it'll tell you that the Messiah was conceived at Hanukkah. He was born 9 months later at the festival of Tabernacles in the 7th Hebrew month, on the 15th day of the month, when the Word became flesh and tabernacled amongst men.
That's right.
And 8 days later, on the 8th great day, he was circumcised, just as Scripture says to be.
Yes.
And he fulfilled all this Scripture. That's how we know that he was the Messiah. There's no doubt about it. But what I'm getting at is, we know that he was not born on December the 25th, and the church says, well, nobody knows when he was born. That's a load of junk. We do know when he was born.
We can prove it with Scripture.
We can prove it with Scripture. So there you go. The Scripture Tony shows right here is the Sabbath day. They're using Scripture that don't even pertain to the Sabbath day to say it's okay. They're using Romans 14, and it talks about what day you can fast on. It don't matter what day you fast on. It don't matter. But that don't pertain to the Sabbath day, and that's what the church says that is. So we busted that argument. That myth buster right there. Busted.